Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. This week we are going to talk all about Core Set 2019 and the current value of the set and where it is headed. So first of all, the site that I have up for you is called Dawnglare, www.dawnglare.com. This will allow you to sort the sets by their expected value of a booster box, and you can actually mess around with the source being either TCG player mid, or you can click on here of TCG player low, and it will give you the price that you're expected if you were to sell all the cards on that platform, what you'd come out with. So I like using Dawnglare because it gives you a nice little overview of the set value. A lot of people get a little bit confused when they go over to Goldfish and they see this line up here, which is the total price of the entire set. So right now the set price is $366, but all sets aren't created equal, because this is the big difference here, is what's included in the set. Right here is a 312 cards, 21 mythics, 63 rares, 86 uncommons, and etc. Just if you go to something like Fate Reforged, that has a lot less set. This number, of course, is going to be a lot lower. So you can't just come here and compare. Oh, look, Core Set 2019 is more valuable than Set B here. That's not a good representation of the estimated value of a booster box is going to be. So anyway, Dawnglare is much better for that. As you can see right now, the Core Set 2019 is $89.26. If we come up over here to Dominaria, it does, though, I believe, yeah, that's not bad. How far do we have to go back? I wish we'd go back a little bit further, because I think I remember when this set came out, the EV was actually a lot higher than that. We had some really nice EV out the gates with Dominaria, and that's why it just sold through the roof. If we come over here to, where is Battle Bond at? Battle Bond is still $100, so if you're looking for a booster box to buy to make your money back, if you are going to sell the singles, then Battle Bond is the way to go. Look, if you come over here to look at Conspiracy, I knew I should have invested in Conspiracy. We actually bought a lot of Conspiracy and played it here at the shop, but I've never been a fan of just buying sealed product and sitting on it. I still don't think it's the best route to go, because I think that Wizards is a lot more aware of the secondary market, and they don't let things get out of hand like they used to. So if you even go back at these set values of some of these sets that were quite expensive at one point, like Avacyn Restored and even Innistrad, you know, $145 for a booster box of Innistrad is still really good, but if you're paying, you can't even find Innistrad booster boxes anymore. That's for like the draftable. That's a whole. I don't think that the reason why a lot of these boxes do start to go up in value is because of scarcity. Magic boomed after these sets were out. This is the time period, Return to Ravnica forward, is when more people got into Magic, and anything before this, you're going to have expensive booster boxes just because of comparison, how many were out there compared to how many are out there for this particular set. There's very few, and new stores like to get like a box of all of these. Like we try to go back and buy old sets. We can find deals for them just because people like to buy packs of sets they've never opened before. So, but anyway, I think going forward though, that the set needs to hold value for these booster boxes to actually move, and that's why I haven't really liked the Return to Ravnica forward. Not only is the prices of cards contained in these booster boxes quite dismal, I'm actually quite impressed with Return to Ravnica here, as it has started to creep up. But there are just so many of them out there, and it's hard for me to think that these are going to go up in value. And that's A. B. Wizards seems to reprint a lot from these later sets as well. Like you see Commander sets come out. Dragon's Maze is a good example. Almost all of the cards out of Dragon's Maze that had any sort of potential of going up in value, save Master of Cruelties, has already been reprinted in sets. So we got the cards like the Voice of Resurgence was already seen a master set printing. So I think that is going to be the same thing for these particular sets. Maybe a card out of like Fate Reforged and Dragons and Khans got basically all the dragons got reprinted in the Commander sets, and it's just, in my opinion, not a good investment to be going the sealed product route. A lot of times they're hard to move. They have a lot of shipping fees associated with them because they're heavy and whatnot. You have to find a specific buyer for that box. I think it's easier to piece out cards. But that's just my 2 cents for why I don't like investing in booster boxes. Still think that singles are better out. However, opening booster boxes to crack their EV is something I've done in the past quite successfully. At one point in time, I gave it up to just redeem sets from MTGO. There's a time period that I was able to redeem Return to Ravnica sets for insanely low on MTGO, and then just go to local game stores and piece out the pieces and sell them for a profit to local game stores. And that's usually taking the cut off of that. I mean, that's how good of the difference was at that time period. With Return to Ravnica, that started to dry out when they started putting a higher fee attached to having things redeemed on MTGO, and B, other people got into doing the exact same thing I was doing, and the market got very saturated, and it also started to reduce the price of paper Magic. MTGO had a real reflection on the price of paper Magic once those redemptions started to happen. So anyway, if you are still interested in piecing out sets, you have to really, really find sources where you can get booster box for cheap. And before we get into this episode of Market Monday, I'm going to do some shameless self-promotion. If this is something you're interested in, either investing in sealed product and sitting on it for long periods of time, or piecing out these new sets when they come out, a little bit of a disclaimer though, sometimes here, if you're going to be using the service that I'm going to talk about, it takes us a while to get products directly to you because we have to get them from the distributor to us, to you. I don't have a surplus of these products just sitting in my storage right now to send out. So anyway, what I want to show you, if you are a fan of the Rogue Market, is we do offer a very good tier for people that want sealed product for cheap. If you're spending even $90, $95, $100 a booster box, you're not going to be able to piece out these cards on platforms like TCG Player or even do the buy list game. You're going to lose money very, very quickly. You really have to nickel and dime and save as much money as possible. So if you do enjoy the show, want to give back, we do have some nice little tiers here. One is called the Pirate's Plunder. It is a $20 tier that you get 5 products per month. This means up to 5 booster boxes per month. We usually get booster boxes at $78 a piece. And then if you cover shipping and any sort of fees, the only fee that we have associated is if you don't send friends and family on PayPal, there is a 2.8% or 2.9% fee for the PayPal. The next one is Pirate's Plunder times 2. This is you can get up to 10 products per month. And I talk about booster boxes here. It goes beyond booster boxes. Anything we can get from our distributor. Currently, we use ACD. So if you go to acdd.com and click on the products, you can find the vast list of products that are eligible if you sign up for this Patreon tier that we can get at distributor price that is about 55 to 60% of the listed price on kind of the open website that they show you on acdd.com. You don't get the distributor price unless you have a login with them. And so, but I can show you the prices we get on that if you are a member of the Pirate Plunder times 2 or the Pirate Plunder. And then we can ship those products at distributor prices. So it's like getting the perks of being a local game store without actually having to own the local game store. So a little bit of a story. One of my patrons bought 7 cases from me of Unstable, and I don't know if he ever flipped them. I think that he should have flipped them when they did get outrageous, because we have seen Unstable start to go down in value as it's still available from Wizards for a couple boxes a week. And slowly the supply is dwindling, but we were able to order a couple boxes a week from Wizards for the last couple months now. But anyway, there was a scarcity one point where Unstable boxes were something obscene, like $165 a booster box, or even higher. I think they got up to like a $180. They're outselling the Iconic and Eternal Masters at one point. So there is that tier. Of course, you can sign up for any of these other tiers above that, like the 33 tier. But once you get up to this $50 tier, actually it's really up to the $100 tier. I need to actually rework these Patreon rewards, but the $50 tier you're eligible as well as some other perks. And then we have the $100 tier, and above is you have access to as many products as you want. So $100 a month, yes, that seems steep, but if you're ordering these in mass quantities, that's how the 7 cases of Unstable were ordered. I have a great patron that has been a patron for quite some time now, and I'm glad to be able to help him out to get insanely cheap prices for the booster boxes that are hard to come by. So we never use our allotment here at Gonro Games. I don't have a lot of like excess capital to just be sitting on stuff like people like Rudy does. I'm slowly starting to work my way up to that. A little bit of a backstory about me. I did not come from a good place about 10 years ago. I've talked about this before on my channel. I was basically worse than bankrupt. I was in debt a lot to various credit cards, things like that, because I had a very, very horrible relationship with medical bills that just piled up, trying to take care of another adult who can't hold a job went through 9 jobs in 3 years. It's just, like I said, just a lot of the crap that ended up really plaguing me. And it was hard to dig myself out of the bad credit, out of the outstanding debt that I had, but slowly but surely I was able to do so. And now I'm starting to put away money towards having excess money to start investing that. But until I get that, I still like to do these Market Monday videos, still like to theorize and be prepared for when I do have that opportunity to really start invest. So we have a store, though. We don't use nearly our allotment. If this is something that interests you to, crack those booster boxes at mass, like I said right now on Dawnglare, theoretically, if you get them at $78 a booster box plus, shipping and whatnot, if you're smart with how you sell, what cards you sell, hold on to the cards that are going to go up in value, sell the cards you think are going to go down in value, you can make a profit off of this particular set. People like Rudy have done this before, just break even point to keep all the foils, and then 3-4 years down the road unloads the foils for the mass profit. That's where the profit goes. Or if it ever comes like Battle Bond or Unstable, where we have a lack of want for those particular products, we don't have the capital to invest in it, well, you can have all the leftovers that's included for master sets, spell books, things like that. So that's kind of like to pimp out the Patreon. We do have a pretty nice little Patreon going, but this is really how Rogue Deck Builder is funded right now. I used to have some really nice sponsorships. I do have some good sponsorships at the moment. Like Cardsphere's been good to me with sponsoring some competitions, and if there was everything that I did need, they would have my back. But I did have some very lucrative sponsorships in the past, and pretty much, I don't think I'm sponsorable now with kind of my outspoken views, especially on community issues and things like that. I've kind of caused that, dug that hole for myself. I have no one to blame but myself for that. But at the same point, I'm not the type of person to sit back and not speak my mind. So I highly suggest that you go and check this Patreon out if this is something you think that you can benefit from. I know there are people out there that are big spenders, and they're still paying $85. They're even going through Sports and More, and it's a little more expensive going through that than it is through this route. And you do help a channel out that is trying to grow. So anyway, there's my shameful self-promotion for the Rogue Deck Builder Patreon. So let's get back to the core set 2019. This is the topic at hand. $89.26. You can even see that a set like Dominaria has gone down all the way to $68.17. We have Rivals of Ixalan that bottomed out at $75. We have Ixalan that bottomed out at $80. We have Hour of Devastation that went even further than that. It went down to 56. Yeah, it's at its lowest right now, of course, rotation. But it looked like it stayed pretty steady at around 60 to 65. And then Amonkhet was not very good at 55 and whatnot. So I think that the core set isn't that much more exciting than like it probably is about the same excitement as like Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan. One of the reasons why I think both these have been able to creep up is how dismally these were purchased. Now, I'm assuming core set 2019 is going to be very similar to both Rivals of Ixalan and Ixalan, where people are just, they both came from a time period. They're both, Somerset was Rivals of Ixalan, I believe. Isn't that when it came out? I can't even remember at this point. Because this was spring. Wait, no, this was fall. This was spring. So these were summer. I can't. Man, this is so weird how they've got this. It used to be so easy. Everything was on when they did 3-block sets when the sets came out. But I'm trying to figure out what set came out where. But anyway, I know that both of these had pretty much a low. The draft seasons didn't really have that much pull. I mean, there were a lot of events, but it was nothing like the amount of that was open from Kaladesh or from Battle for Zendikar or Ulth. So Ixalan's prices and rival Ixalans have been able to creep up just because there was no value to begin with, and then because of scarcity, then value started to creep up, and people, for whatever reason, still aren't opening these particular boxes, even though they do hold value. So Core Set 2019, I think it's going to be the exact same thing. People are going to have this massive opening. It's going to be in the draft season for a while, and this prices have to come down from the $89.26. Otherwise, people will still begin to crack the boxes and sell it off. So let's go over to Core Set 2019. I'm going to have an entire video of my predictions of the top 10 cards that I think are going to go up and down. So I'm not going to give away that too much on this video. Well, I probably am actually, but we're just going to go card by card. I think anything over about $2 and see where it's going to go at this point. So right off the bat is Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Nicol Bolas the Ravager out of week 1 has definitely seen the most play. That's why it spiked up more than other cards. This was a card that was pre-selling at, looks like $25 and is went all the way up to the $40 mark and is now settled down at $35. I think that there's nowhere for this to go but down. It is a pretty sweet card, the fact that it gets value when it comes out, but that's actually, I think the ETB ability on Nicol Bolas is actually quite lackluster. The 4/4/4 flying is the better attribute that actually does have an ETB ability, but I think even drawing a card would be better than having an opponent discard a card. Maybe you could say in like a control-ish type shell, getting rid of an opponent's card is better than drawing a card, but I think I'd even argue that point. Usually it's always draw a card is better than discard. Then, of course, you can exile Nicol Bolas for 7 mana to turn it into the Nicol Bolas the Arisen, and has some pretty relevant abilities of draw 2 cards, 10 damage to a creature, Planeswalker from the -3, put a creature or Planeswalker card from a battlefield under your control, and exile all but the bottom card of target player's library for the 12. So it's a couple tick-ups of drawing 2 cards. It's exactly where you want to be late. But I don't even know if this is where the strength of the card is. It's still just a 4/4/4 with a little bit of an upside with potential upside. So I think that this is a card that is easily replaceable in a lot of decks if something better comes along. And I think that something better will come along for a 4-drop card to maybe push people out of this color combination, or even in this color combination that might just be even better, like maybe even like a double black, double colorless card, like Kalidas, for example. A card like Kalidas could be printed, and then people are like, okay, that's just better the current metagame than something like Nicol Bolas. So currently, this deck has seen play. I believe it has the most copies in the league. The only statistic we have is the standard league that was just played, and there are a couple of decks that have 4 ofs, a couple of them have 3 ofs, in kind of the reboot of the Grixis energy. So this is having the little Glint Sleeve Siphoner, Champion of Wits. There's going to be the control cards like the Magma Spray. It's funny that they're doing Magma Spray over Fatal Push. Abrade, Harness Lightning, Supreme Will. We've all seen this deck. This deck's been around forever. It's been through different stages of what people have put in it. And yeah, this is just a good old Grixis Energy Scarab God deck. And this one's running Nicol Bolas. I think they actually like to run it because I think what was the card? They were running Glorybringers at one point in this, but you know, Glorybringer still I think is pretty decent. But this is a better curve slot. It actually does survive a Glorybringer, which is good news for it. So it does have action versus red with the 4 for flying and get some value off of it. It's not a bad card to reanimate from the Scarab God, and I think it does what this deck wants to be doing. But I think it's a very easy slot. Out of all the cards that you're looking at in Grixis, I think the Nicol Bolas is the weakest link in it. Beforehand, I think people were running 4 of Champion of Wits. They might go back to that. There could be another Planeswalker like Chandra coming back into the mix instead of Nicol Bolas. There's a lot of cards that can easily go in the slot, and when a new card does come out, people tend to toy around with it more, and that's why you're going to see some jaded numbers, I think, even out of week 1. So you see it did see play in at least a few decks in this first league here. So Nicol Bolas, though, I think has to go down. I think the value, this is where a lot of the value is held right now. And of course, the casual players are going to eat this up for a while. It's going to be people's commanders. It's going to be, I'm sure the foil is just obscene. Yeah, $90 for the foil. So it's going to hold price for a little bit, and then it's just going to slowly but surely go down. If we compare this with cards like Torrential Gearhulk or the Scarab God that are even lower priced now, those have been dominant in their standard formats. I don't think that this is quite modern playable. I don't think something like Grixis Grixis Death Shadow wants it or Grixis Control or anything. So Nicol Bolas is, in my opinion, is going to, I think, even go all the way down to the 15, maybe even below mark when all is said and done. However, this card could go back up when it hits its lowest. Is one I'll keep my eye on, like post-rotation. Yeah, all those type of things need to be considered. We are very, very short before that rotates, before things get a fresh new look. And this might be one of the more powerful cards out the gates of the new rotation. As you look, even in that Grixis deck, everything rotates. Well, that's actually a bad thing for this particular card if the entire shell rotates but Nicol Bolas. Maybe that, there's a lot of ifs if this is actually going to see play post-rotation. Another thing, too, is the mana base gets a lot worse unless Ravnica comes in with Shocklands, and it's going to get a lot better. So, you never know exactly where this is going to be, and this sort of unknown at $35 is way too rich for my blood. So Nicol Bolas, I think, is a sell right now. All right, so Tezzeret Artifice Master, this is one that I kind of like as a hold. Planeswalkers tend to be the ones that go crazy once they do find a home. Tezzeret did not find a home over this weekend. There have been a few decks that have messed around with Tezzeret. I've seen some brews with it too. I had this in the pre-release. This card was absolutely a boss. Even when it was just creating 1/1 Thopters, it wasn't terrible. As it starts at 5, you get up to 6, and even drawing a card isn't bad. The emblem is just awesome. The emblem's not hard to get up to. But at this point, I think that Teferi, if you're in, of course, white-blue, is just a better shoe-in than Tezzeret. If you're in a color that can splash a color white pretty easily, it's going to want Teferi over Tezzeret. Kaladesh is leaving, which a lot of the key artifacts were from Kaladesh, so it would make this card work. So there you have it. It's a very, very awkward card to invest in, to think it's going to, even if it does hit a deck, to think it's going to go crazy. People have talked about it as a possible modern card that is just broken with the draw 2 cards per turn, but again, I think that in modern there's just better things to do. So I think this will hold the moment. I don't know. This is probably a sell. I think that the price tag for this is going to be $15. It's probably going to stay pretty stubborn at 15 because of all of the players are going to play it in like EDH and casually because these are very relevant abilities. All right, so we have the Crucible of Worlds, and I'm not going to talk about the reprints that much, except that you should be investing in these reprints, like Crucible of Worlds and the Omniscience, but you have plenty of time before they do continue to go down. Nicol Bolas was a good thing for the price of Crucible of Worlds coming down even more, as it held a lot of the value from this set, and I think Crucible is going to keep going down reasonably well, but this is a card that does get better over time with the more lands that, especially sacrifice type of lands. I would not be surprised if a Crucible of Worlds deck does see play in standard. It has to be before rotation though, because all those utility lands go out. We do have like the memorials, but I still think the good ones are the deserts. So Crucible of Worlds though, EDH staple. If it keeps going down, especially if it goes down under 12, this is definitely a pickup. Next to Fate, I actually think this is a massive pickup. You can see right now it's down to 19, and I think this card is something you can easily hit 35, 40, 50 bucks once these buy-up promos have finally all been handed out. Now, here's the big if, though. The big if is Wizards going to reprint this because of everyone just, losing their crap because this is only from a buy-a box? I don't think so. I think that this is Wizards' fine way. Usually the pendulum swings too far in, directions when they do swing it. That's the problem with Wizards. They go all out on one. I was really, really, really blasting Wizards for like Sports and More having the same access as a local game store. There's no perks to having a local game store. And lo and behold, Wizards actually did respond with the specific buy-a-box promo. Now that doesn't address the fake stores, so there will be a lot of fake stores that are just putting these up on eBay right now. The only people that should be putting these up on eBay right now are players. In fact, stores, it's illegal to sell these. Well, not illegal, but it's against WPN terms to sell promos until I believe they're out of their standard rotation. I believe so. I can't remember. It's like 2 years after this printing before a game store is allowed to sell the promos. And then it's even still frowned upon at that point. You're supposed to be giving out all of the promos you receive. So if you look at this, I don't know when Wizards can have a massive crackdown on stores that are selling this that have no right to sell it. But anyway, I think that once these have finally reached have been given out and are all said and done, this card could definitely go up, especially if it sees standard play. This should be a very popular card in EDH. It's another take extra turn. It's one that doesn't exile itself, so you can keep abusing it. And I think that 19 is pretty low for this. So this is a card I think is pretty good to pick up. Now we're off to the card that I think is the biggest bust out of the set, which is the Resplendent Angel. Resplendent Angel is competing with so many cards right now in the format. If we look at it out the gates of week 1, it saw a whopping, what? 0 play? Okay, all right, that can't be right? That can't be right. Resplendent Angel, everyone, it's just the best card. Seth Manfield rated the best card out of 2019. No, that cannot be right. Well, let's go over the metagame for this last Standard League. And is white just massively underrepresented? Is that the problem? We have like a zombies deck, which we'll be talking about later. We got like the Death Baron and the Liliana Untouched by Death in here. Graveyard Marshal, that's the big one out of this zombies. We have black-green Constrictor, okay, a black-red aggro. We have a blue-black gift. This is something I'm going to be trying later on. I'm going to be trying to make zombies work and see if we can just do a full-on zombie shell with Liliana, because Liliana mills pretty well. It's pretty well. Blue-black mid-range. Teferi, didn't want to run it. I mean, this has access. Of course, this isn't something it wants to run. We have another Jeskai Control using Teferi. The mono-green Stompy. We have mono-red. We have the black-blue mid-range. This is another Nicol Bolas. This is just the energy shell. No, this is the non-energy shell of this. I don't know why they don't run it with Glint Sleeve, though. I think Harness Lightning is a good one here to throw in here. Is that really the only card in here? Is Nicol Bolas in here? We have another Grixis. We have another Grixis. This is like mono red throwing in Nicol Bolas and the Scarab God. This is a funny little list here. That is a pretty funny list. Glorybringer has Nicol Bolas as a 4 of. Nicol Bolas has seen a lot of play here. We have a ramp deck. This is a cool deck actually. We have another blue-white control. We have an Angel of Invention, Godfrey's Gift deck. Oh, here we go. Here's the first white deck. This is No Catcher's Monument. Didn't want it. It chose to run over Sunscorched Champion, over Angel of Invention that can gain that life it might need, and Sunscorched Champion can sort of gain that life it might need, and they could have even gone that route. Nope, didn't run it. White-black. Okay, white-black. This is the deck that, of course, just wants to run it, right? Womp, womp, womp. 4 History of Benalius here, 2 Benalish Marshals, and other cards. This is a night build, so it is trying to have sort of that night theme. So, of course, History of Benalius in here. But this is going to be the glaring problem with the Resplendent Angel, is the card called History of Benalia. It's also going to compete with the 4/4 cat that puts out 1/1s. It's going to compete with a ton of other 3-drops, and I just think that the card is just not where it wants to be in Standard at the moment. Now let's look at the removal of choice. We have Fatal Push, which can destroy it if a card left the battlefield. We have Seal Away, which is actually a pretty good response to attacking in and pumping it up. I mean, that's a huge liability to be pumping 6 mana into a card to give it lifelink. So it wants other cards to gain life so it can pump out that 4/4. Dies to Dust Dawn, so of course that's one of the reasons, of course, a deck like this doesn't want to run it. And let's go with some other removal spells here. So again, it's something that Essence Scatter comes out after Essence Scatter and all the counter spells, and so it's not the greatest card to pressure your opponents. It can't even block a Chain Whirler with the first strike, so that's a problem. It still dies to Hour of Devastation. And a Braid? Is that correct? It dies to a Braid? Oh yes, it dies to a Braid, everyone. A Braid, one of the most played removal spells. Dies to Harness Lightning. Dies to Lightning Strike. Dies to Cast Out and Cast Down. It's just, to me, it's just like not a card that Standard at the moment wants. It's even not even that. There's another one. Dies to Yahini's Expertise. Dies to Essence Extraction at the moment. In fact, if it does become like a big card, people could justify running Essence Extraction in their list to take care of Chain Whirlers, take care of that. And really, I don't see red going anywhere at the moment. So that is my Dies to Wizard Lightning here too. And a lot of people are like, oh, the Dies of Doomblade analogy isn't correct. Well, yes, it is. There were cards even back in, like, it was the Abrupt Decay thing that a lot of the cards couldn't see play because of like cards like Abrupt. I'm actually thinking of what was a card that was the big Return to Ravnica card that came out that really stopped other cards from seeing play. Had to have a certain toughness. Oh, it was afterwards. The 5 toughness was key when like Stoke the Flames was a thing. But anyway, so now we have like the 3 toughness card. Must survive 3. It must have higher than 3 toughness or get value when it comes out. And the Angel does nothing of that. Still dies like Chandra. Still dies to Glory Bringers. Just a huge liability for a card that does not get any sort of ETB effect or value when it comes directly out. That's a lot of mana to be pumping into a card to try and get just a 4/4 Angel, which also might not be that impactful. So, not a big fan of this Resplendent Angel. I think that it's going down, down, down. A Johnny Adversary of Tyrants did have some lists, especially in like sideboards, that'll Catcher's Monument deck, and I believe the Night deck had it in there. I think the Night deck had one of in the main, or 2 of in the main and 1 in the side, and the Catcher's Monument had 1 of them in the side. So that's good news for about a Johnny. The comes out as a 4/4 Planeswalker for 4. It's no Gideon though, and the return target creature card with convert mana cost 2 or less is going to be nice because it's something going to fill back up your battlefield, and it's got a relevant ability. Yeah, so the +1's nice too. It still occurs with some pretty decent cards at the moment, like History of Benalia. If you have like you go Knight, History of Benalia, there's 2 targets for it. You probably have like a 4/3 Knight and a 3/3 Knight, and then History of Benalia puts out another one. You can pump it up again, and then it cracks, and then you swing in. But I don't know if you'd rather just have something else out at that point. I understand that you have some Vigilance creatures now that are going to be able to protect it, and if you get up to that 7, the emblem is actually not the greatest thing. It's 3 1/1 white creature cat tokens per turn, so it's not like the zombie emblem from Liliana. So again, I'm not. I think $12 is probably about right. It's more likely it is about 7 to 8, I would say. I have a hard time seeing this card go down further. 5 is probably low. I give it 5 to 6. But again, I think this is going to see play throughout its standard history, especially after rotation. I think that white aggro is in good shape. If Chain Ruler gets banned, it's even in better shape. So keep your eye on a Johnny Adversaries of Tyrants. I think that it has a huge range of what it could be, so you have to keep on top of the meta. Sarkhan the Fireblood is a card I don't like, even if we go into very dragon-centric type theme, like let's say that Ravnica shouldn't, because they have the whole theme of they've killed off all the dragons in Ravnica. That was the whole Hunted Dragon theme. So I don't know if we're going to get many other dragons. There seemed to always be a dragon out of every set. What did we have? We had the one in Oath in Gatecrash. We also had one in Return to Ravnica. Did we have one in? No, Dragon's Maze was a set without dragons. That's what people all made fun of it. But so Sarkhan Fireblood, it's just very awkward at the moment. It's got the reverse loot, which is pretty terrible if you ask me. If you have relevant cards, it just pumps up and doesn't do anything. The add 2 mana that can only be spent on dragons is also pretty meh unless they come out with like the tribal spells again and give you a good dragon one that works with this. So I don't know. Not a big fan of Sarkhan the Fireblood at the moment. I think that $12 is just the casual players really buying this up at the moment. And then that has to go back down. Long term, if this goes down to like the $2 mark, which we've seen a lot of other cards do, I think this is a pickup at that point. And I reasonably can think that this card will go down that far. Don't worry about these decks that are come out of the Planeswalker decks. Are irrelevant. But that's some nice little value right there that you can get let's pimp out the Patreon again. You can get these from $6 from me. These you have to buy them in sets though, the Planeswalker decks. And Tezzeret the Cruel Machinist sells for 11 at the moment, which is just plain crazy. Anyway, where was I going with this here? With these come out of the Planeswalker decks. You get a booster pack out of it. I don't think you get much else out of that pack though. All right, so Liliana Untouched by Death. This one we talked about a little bit earlier. It's kind of awkward because you can miss a lot of times with the top 3 cards and not get a zombie, but draining for 2 life and gaining 2 life. Think of how good Chandra is right now with just the +1, especially in an aggro deck. If you go first turn, second turn, third turn, drop Liliana, it's almost like a 5 toughness creature that does 2 damage and 2 life when it comes out. And then if it survives another turn, it does another. So to me it's almost Siege Rhino-ish. If it hits, it can protect itself as well by giving -X and -X to a creature where X number of zombies control, but that's actually a lackluster ability too for a -2. And -3 though is you can cast zombie cards from your grave turn. That's actually the shining light of this card, because I think that turn 5, even -3 and casting like a 2-drop, a 3-drop and a 2-drop, or a 3-drop and 2 1-drops, especially when the Lord is with that. So you put out the Death Baron and you put out now a 3/3 and a 3/2 Death Toucher from your graveyard. And it might even trigger off some things that if you cast cards from your graveyard, by the way. So if you throw the bat in the mix, I doubt you'd want to throw the bat artifact in the mix, but there are some synergies there. I don't know. I think this card's a lot better than people are really giving it at the moment. And it actually was one of the few cards that did see play in those zombies list. On to Chromium the Mutable. Chromium the Mutable, I absolutely cannot stand this card because it is, what is the card out of Ixalan that it competes with? So I think that as long as Rivals of Ixalan, as long as the blue, what is the blue dinosaur called out of? Nezahal Primal Tide. As long as Nezahal Primal Tide exists, I think that Nezahal Primal Tide is just superior. Opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card. That's huge. Discard 3 cards, you X out, return it tapped. And it's a 7/7. Compare that to the Chromium that has to go in an Esper deck. We don't know if Esper at this point wants it. I think they might want it in the sideboard, but again, Nezahal, if they wanted a card like this, that's what they'd put in it. Flash, the spell can't be countered. Okay, cool. That's really, really solid right there. It's a 7/7, similar stats. Flying, that's better. Discard a card, it becomes a 1/1 and has Hexproof. The thing is, you can play around it by forcing it to block something and then cast a removal spell on it. And then if they have no choice then to try to turn it into a 1/1 that will die in the block exchange. To me, it's a lot worse of this. That last part is a lot worse than the Primal Tide. And for that reason, I think it's a lot more narrow, has to go in Esper. It's a lot of people in evaluating them. I don't even think if Esper would want to choose this over it. So I think this is a card that's destined to go down. Vivian Reed, this impressed me in the pre-release. I think that the meta needs to have some artifacts, enchantments, and creatures that are worth killing. At the moment, absolutely, because I think against the Teferi deck, they run a lot of Sealaways, Castouts, Ixalan's Binding, and Vivian can come down, destroy one of those, get back something, and then start applying the card draw. So I think that this isn't a main board card. I think this is a sideboard card that's going to see a ton of sideboards, especially if we see any sort of red-green aggro or just playing green aggro, or even a lot of the combos that green aggro could have are going to want to run this. It doesn't seem that bad of a card to throw in the energy decks that are starting to see play again. It's just there have been some 5/0 finishes with the old Attune with the Aether Rogue Refiner energy deck. Vivian Reed actually does pair pretty nicely in this for the sideboard for that deck, as all of these abilities are quite relevant for the card draw, for the destroying artifacts or enchantments, and getting the emblem eventually to make all of your Whirler Virtuoso tokens be able to win the game quite easily. All right, so Arcades the Strategist, I think, is going to hold value just because I think that all the Commander players are going to want to pick this up, and I think it's going to be the Razaketh or the Atali from Rivals of Ixalan, that it's just going to continue to be very, very popular and casual. So I think $8 is probably right for this card. Omniscience is a card that if it even goes below $5, you start picking these up like crazy. It still does see a legacy deck. It sees a lot of casual play, and it hit all the way up to $30 or $25, and that wasn't too long ago that this card was printed. So that's where this card can go. It only had a Mythic printing before and a invention or what was an invocation. So the supply is still quite low for this particular card. 2 more of these Planeswalker decks. Death Baron. Let's just talk about the rares here. We'll only go down to $2 here because it's getting to be quite a long video. The Death Baron, I think, is bound to go down, and I think this card is, if you look up something like Grave Scrabbler, you'll see why. Like, I like these cards long term for, and you did see it was in the zombies list, but Grave Scrabbler, not Grave Scrabbler, what is that? We're gonna pull up some EDH rec here really quickly, and let me figure out the cards here that go with Death Baron in a zombie deck. Death Baron. All right, so here is good old EDH rec. You can see that some of the other cards, like Lord of the Undead, that card's continue to go up. This is exactly what Death Baron was doing until it got a reprint, because, you know, Lord of the Undead and Death Baron had very, very low supply compared to the demand of all these zombie decks that are out there. You can even see like Endless Rings of the Dead continues to go up. I always love picking up zombies when they are reprinted, because they inevitably do go up. However, while they're in their standard season, all right, there's a good one. Cemetery Reaper, Let's find some other ones, like Zombie. Zombie Master doesn't give +1/+1 though, so it might be inferior. What are the other ones? I swear there was a few other Zombie Lords that did the exact same thing. Yeah, maybe there's not. Maybe there still is a... I know there's a 4-drop one. Let's go over to creatures should have it. Come on, there's some creatures here. And then you can kind of see these cards do, and then they're in their standard season. They go down very, very low. And then it takes a while for them to get back. So I'm not knocking on Death Baron. I think that Death Baron is mainly just price memory that's keeping it as high as it is. And then it is a good pickup like later down the road. So right now at the Death Baron at the $4.65, I think is too high. When it does get down to that $2 mark, that's the time to pick it up. And that's if you, again, go back to the historical cards of these Lord type effects. That's usually where they stabilize out at, is about $2. And so Death Baron should be no. In fact, if this is the first printing of Death Baron, I really think it really is price memory that is keeping this higher than it really should be. You look at the other lords like the Spirit Lord, the Night Lord, the Elf Lord. They're all at $2 right now. So why is this one higher? Well, price memory from when it was worth a lot. So that's misleading. I think that of any rare, this is the one that has the most to go down. So let's just go over some other quick ones really quickly. We have a couple of mythics like the Vivictus Asmati and the Palladium Moors, which I think same thing with the other. The problem is that these just get outclassed by very similar other 6-drops. Flying Vigilance Trample 6/6 for 6. That's not bad. Like if Anaya does want a top end curve, this is pretty solid. And it has hexproof until it does do damage, so at least you get some sort of value out of it, which is kind of cool. Vivictus is okay as well. Flying, and then it's for 6/6 for 6, and then when it attacks, a player has to sacrifice a permanent. Each player has to, and then they get a random off the top of the library, which seems kind of weird for the investment this heavy. So both these I'm not that keen on of investing in them. The really funny thing about Aggressive Mammoth is these are in your welcome decks. You can literally go get a free welcome deck and sell one for $3. There's a little bit of an arbitrage moment. Alpine Moon, I think, will continue to go down because unless it starts to see play in Modern, this is a card you should watch closely because I just think there's better things of dealing with it. Unfortunately, the deck that this was made to shut down at the moment is just running Mono Green and running Nature's Claim in the main to deal with these type of, or at least in the sideboard, and it just doesn't really shut them down. In fact, it gives them the mana to cast the card to get rid of it. And so I'm not a fan of Alpine Moon at the moment. Leonin War Leader is a kind of cool card. Both these, the Supreme Phantom, if this does see a modern Spirits deck, this is a card you should pick up, especially if it goes down under the $2 mark. Runic Armisar, I think this is the sleeper of the set. I think the $2.79 is kind of low for that. Usually these value green creatures tend to go up. In fact, the Thrashing Brontodon I think is worth more at the moment, and this could just replace it as it's got a little more relevance. No, maybe not. Maybe the Destroy an Artifact's better, but the 2/5 and the 3/4 body might be superior as well. But a 2/5 for 3 mana dodges basically everything in the format, can block a lot of the cards nicely, and there are quite a bit of activated abilities of creatures and lands that aren't mana abilities to draw cards. In Modern, I think this is something that could breathe some life into into the black-green rock type strategy, or even the green-white hate bearers. Leonin War Leader, this is the card I like the most for a card that potentially has the most to play. Traditionally, these type of cards like Hero Bladehold and the one off Theros that was quite similar to this, they created the soldiers. This is 1 more mana, but it does have a really nice body. 4/4 for 4, and creates 2, immediately creates, if it gets 1 attack phase, creates 2 lifelinkers. So it isn't quite a Hero Bladehold as far as finishing off the game as quickly because they, with Battle Cry attached to a 3/4 body. But the 4/4 is still relevant, survives a Chain Whirler, is able to eat a Lightning Strike or a Wizard Lightning, a Braid as well. Dies a Fatal Push with some work. Still dies to cast down, but it's to me, I think the Leonin War Leader is very well positioned at the moment, and tokens may still be a thing. There are still some fun things to do with tokens. I think casual players can eat this up, and this might be the card that just, right off the bat isn't seeing a lot of play, but then starts to go up. Cleansing Nova. So Remorseful Cleric, you have to do the same thing with the Supreme Phantom. This is a great little sideboard card. If Modern either Hate Bears or Death and Taxes or Spirits decks pick it up, you should definitely keep a close eye on Remorseful Cleric. Graveyard Marshal, you saw that was a 4 of in the deck. This might be one of the other cards to start picking up to. These type of cards, if they do see tier 1, tend to go to the $4 mark. So even though that's not exciting, sometimes a card like this out of Zombies can go further. People have even talked about how this is modern playable. I don't know if that's correct, but a 3/2 for 2 mana for a Devotion-based zombie list with Grey Merchant and the other 3-drop triple black, that might be actually appealing for a zombie-type tribal deck in a modern shell. But the last card I kind of want to talk about before we move on with this, because it just gets down to the low stuff, is the Cleansing Nova. I think the Cleansing Nova is probably the best buy right now. I don't think it has much more to go down. Of course, right now it's getting outshadowed by 2 cards, Fumigate, and it's also getting outshadowed by Settle the Wreckage. However, post-rotation, I think this is going to be the premier removal spell, or board wipe for white. And the Destroy All Artifacts and Enchantments is insanely relevant right now, even in the mirrors for that particular. I think this is a card you could easily bring in versus in the Teferi mirror when they bring in Ixalan's Bindings and Cast Outs and the Seal Away type cards, and you can hold on to yours, Cleansing Nova, get all your stuff back, and then play yours later. The versatility of this, I think, is underrated at the moment for Cleansing Nova. I'm going to start running it in various decks just for the Destroy All Artifacts and Enchantments, because that is, like I said, very relevant. We have an artifact deck right now in the meta. We have it now with all the enchantments, where it could easily be a 3-for-1, and we can even see even more of those type of decks to spawn out. We can see even an even heavier artifact deck start to see play, and this can just be a blowout. So that's kind of my whole pick for it. Again, I'll have a whole edited video for my top 10 booms and busts. I think I right now have 6 booms, 4 busts, and you can probably get a good guess of what those are. For that video. We'll have it coming out sometime, probably Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know. It might even come out tomorrow, so we'll be looking forward to that. Appreciate everyone for this kind of long drawn out, again, Market Monday. This was a long one, wow. But hope you get some knowledge out of this. And again, if you wouldn't mind, check out the Patreon. Just mull it over. You don't even have to sign up for those higher rates. If you want a booster pack cracked in your honor, you just even want to sponsor the Market Monday, we have a tier for that, and you still get a booster pack cracked in your honor and sent to you. So again, that's the way if you're going to be able to fund creators that like myself. I don't think that I'm not hurting. Don't let me get you thinking that I'm in a bad state right now and begging for Patreon money. I like to give out with Patreon, so if this is something that you want to see me continue to produce content like that, or actually like what I do, that's a way you can give me a nice little tip back and get something back in return. And if you are looking to crack those booster boxes, you are looking to spend some decent money and don't have a local game store that you particularly are fond of, or even though you have a local game store in area, hopefully I can fill that niche for you. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.